Thanks for joining me. This is our second video in a three-part series this week as we're looking at Moses and his encounter with God at the burning bush. You see, oftentimes we fall into the habit, like Moses, of making excuses about why we don't want to follow God. The second excuse that we're talking about today is that we say that we're too busy. Moses, he could have really easily fallen into this excuse. I mean, at this point, he's 80 years old. He's got a career, a shepherd. He has a family. He has an identity that has very little to do with his past problems. We have so many things in our society today that we can get busy with. Most of them, don't get me wrong, they're not bad things in and of themselves. But we can't keep up with it all. I mean, as we grow and mature, we also start to wrestle more and more with the limits of our own physical strength and our own endurance. And I think this is where Moses really would have been. I mean, busy looks a lot different at 20 than it does at 40. Looks a lot different at 40 than it does at 80. My great-grandpa, he was a shepherd in South Dakota. And I remember going to visit him on the Rosebud Reservation there in South Dakota. Even in his 80s, he still kept livestock. But at this point, he had about 10 cows. He had a dog that helped him out. And he had a little patch where he would garden, especially tomatoes. He loved growing tomatoes to give to his neighbors. But I mean, it was a far cry from the herds and the flocks that my great-grandpa had kept when he was younger. And at 80 years, I imagine that Moses probably wasn't watching as many sheep as he did when he was younger. Maybe he had hired hands by this point. He was just managing the other shepherds who actually dealt with the day-to-day needs of the sheep. The Bible doesn't really give us those details. Moses could have really easily decided that he was too busy to even go and check out this burning bush, but he gave in to his curiosity and he went and he checked it out. And because of that same attitude, Moses was ready to listen to God. He didn't just try to explain away the bush or to explain away the voice that he heard once he approached the bush. He took time to listen on God's terms. Go ahead and turn to Hebrews chapter 12, verses 28 through 29. Therefore, let us be grateful for receiving a kingdom that cannot be shaken, and thus let us offer to God acceptable worship with reverence and awe, for our God is a consuming fire. You know, it's so important that we take time to listen. I mean, not just to hear the words that God has for us, not just to read the printed page, but to really listen and understand that we are coming into God's presence when He speaks to us. And there needs to be a sense of reverence and awe. We need to give God a proper amount of time so that we can hear what He's really saying. God's a consuming fire. It means that He's not safe, people. We can come with our own questions. We can come because of our own curiosity. But if we really want to hear the answers, we need these questions answered on God's terms. We need to be ready to listen according to God's parameters. So I want to ask you today, what is the difference between asking questions and arguing with God? Go ahead and leave a comment down below, or you can email me, weston@gracepointe.ca. I'd like to hear what you think on this. I think a big part of it comes down to whose terms we're trying to meet with God under. Are we meeting God on our terms, or are we meeting God on His own terms? Are we bringing the proper reverence and awe when we come into God's presence? But I want to hear from you. What has this looked like in your own journey, in your own relationship with Jesus? How have you learned to meet God on His terms, to ask Him questions, but not argue with Him? want to encourage you to tune in again. We've got a third part for this series. And in the meantime, there's also more ways to get connected with GracePointe Community Church on our website, gracepointe.ca, or on the Facebook page. Looking forward to hearing from you. God bless.